So one of my former students, hi Jag, asked me to do a post on how to read a nutrition label, and I realized quickly by trying to do them that they take forever because there's a lot to talk about on a food label, and it depends on what your goals are. So I've decided to focus this video on how to read a food label if achieving or maintaining a healthy weight is your number one concern. So before I move on, I would be remiss if I didn't say that ideally you eat foods without a food label, like this beautiful orange right here. Actually, it did have a label on it, but all that label said was that it was coming from wherever it was coming from. And ideally, that's a local place. But if you are eating pre-packaged foods, which a lot of us do eat for convenience sake and for price sake sometimes as well, what are some things to pay attention to? Well, if weight management is your number one concern, the number one thing you want to look for on a food label is the total amount of calories found in that serving of food. And you want to cross-reference this with how many calories you need in a day. If you want to keep your weight the same, you spend a bunch of calories in the day to do your basic body functions, but also to be active as well. And when you burn a certain amount of calories in a day, and if you consume more calories than you burn, that extra chunk is more likely to get stored as fat on the body. So you need a certain amount of calories, and if you consistently go moderately below that, you're more likely to burn fat over time. So you want to either to keep your weight the same, you want to consume the same amount of calories that you need. If you want to lose weight, you want to consume less calories than your body burns in a day, than it needs in the day. And then you'll steal from your fat stores to provide that energy to your body. So the question is, how many calories do you need in a day? Well, I'll actually post an equation at the bottom that'll estimate more or less how many calories you need in a day based on your gender, your weight, your height, and your activity levels. Once you know that, that's your budget. Let's say your budget is 2,000 calories in a day. Well, if you consume a meal with 1,000 calories in it, that's, more than a third of your needs for the day, and that if you consistently eat that much all the time, you're going to go well above your needs, and you're going to be more likely to store fat on your body. My rule of thumb is about 50 to 150 calories per meal, and then per snack, and then for a meal about 300 to 700 calories, but it depends. Sometimes I eat a lot more for lunch, and then I'll balance that out with eating less for dinner. It's not about one meal, it's about a regular pattern of eating that adds up. So when you go too far one way, you can make it up with more balanced decisions. So calories are the number one thing to look at on a food label if weight management is your number one concern. Also, certain foods are more likely to be filling than other foods depending on what nutrients are in that food. So, as a rule, protein, fiber, and actually fat as well are more filling than something like sugar. So if the food label you're reading is very high in sugar, and this is actually, believe it or not, that high in sugar. I'm not promoting Kraft Dinner by any means, but it has 6 grams of sugar, which is not ideal. It's ideal that it's a little bit lower depending on what that food is, but a can of Coca-Cola has well over I think it's got about 30 some odd grams of sugar in it. You want to keep that number low, especially when it comes to added sugars that are added to that food on top of what's naturally in it. Foods that are high in just sugar don't fill you up, and there's evidence to support that regularly consuming high sugar foods may promote something that's a bit controversial, but something called food addiction in individuals. And a lot of people say that they have mad cravings for sugar, and regularly consuming it is maybe promoting those cravings. So meals that are relatively low in sugar and that have a punch, a good nutrient breakdown or at least one of fiber, protein, and fat, which are more likely to be filling. But the total caloric consumption in your day is the number one thing that's going to factor in how likely you are to store fat on your body. Okay, so something to think about, but like I said, ideally you are eating food without a food label. It is generally accepted that this unprocessed, natural food, whole food way of eating is one that's going to minimize risk of disease and hopefully just help you make better decisions overall. That's going to lead to a moderate weight too. So something to think about, but also don't forget to enjoy eating, because eating's a lot of fun, and don't get too obsessive with these things too, because food is great. We just need to learn how to, make some better decisions about it. Something to think about. Have a fantastic day. Take care. Bye-bye.